So I know it's been a while since I posted anything, so I wanted to take some time and reflect. Today is November 10th, and I am in California. I'm reluctant to call it home, but we'll get into that. So I've been back in the US for about 3 weeks now, and this wasn't exactly part of my plan. So being a tuna pilot on a boat is not something that's for everybody. In fact, I would say most of the guys that I talk to end up hating it. You know, they go out there and they have that goal of getting their time and making some money along the way, but it's really just a stepping stone. And by the time most guys have their 12 months done, they're eager, if not excited, to leave. For me, it felt a bit different. I was out there for 16 months total, and I actually was one of the guys that wanted to stay. I was one of the few guys out of my group of, pilots that was in Guam that decided to extend my contract. And it wasn't for the money, and it wasn't because of the flight hours. It was simply because I loved it out there. It was a different walk of life that I feel so few people have had a chance to experience, let alone so few pilots. And I really fell in love with that feeling of constantly being out of my comfort bubble and really being able to sort of make my own rules, if you will, around the helicopter and how I operate on a day-to-day basis. And it was one of the few times in my life where I felt that things slowed down. I have always been a go-getter, a person who does not like to sit idle. I am always on the go doing something, whether it's something productive or I'm just trying to waste time by doing, random errands. That's how I've been since I got out of high school. I didn't go to college right off the bat. I got right into the workforce and I worked 7 days a week and I was fine with it and I loved it. And as I got older and decided to go to flight school, it was the same thing. I put myself through flight school. I finished a bachelor's degree in 2.5 years. That probably should have taken 4. I did all of my flight ratings. I had 2 jobs. I was balancing a relationship with my home life and still somehow managed to keep a 3.9 GPA. I loved being busy, but that's because that's all I knew how to do. That's what I was used to. And when I first got to the boat, it felt weird to have so much downtime, but I slowly found myself really enjoying the time I had there, enjoying the flying, enjoying the lifestyle, the interactions I would have with people, whether it was other pilots or people that were working on the boat with me. So here I am in November, back in California, same place from where I left. I'm borrowing a buddy's Gixxer just to kind of get the motorcycle thing out, and right now I'm in one of the redwood forests here out on the coast, and it's absolutely beautiful, and I love being back, but there's also a part of me that wishes I was still on the boat. The funny thing is, when I got back to the US, my sister came to pick me up at the airport, and I felt sad, I guess. I had this sort of overwhelming emotion well up inside of me, and I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. And I started to tear up a little bit, and my sister automatically assumed that it was because I hadn't seen her in, a year and a half, and I was glad to be back. But to be honest, I'm not sure that was it. I think I was sad to have left. So, like I mentioned, my contract would have ended in August of 2022, and I had planned to stay until January, maybe February of 2023, possibly longer. Unfortunately, due to some shenanigans with the company that I'm not going to get into, a lot of the guys, myself included, ended up basically being grounded. We weren't allowed to fly anymore, and we were told that next time our boats went to port, the helicopter would likely be unloaded. And that's a different story all on its own, so if you want to research that, you're more than welcome to. It's not something I'm going to get into right now. But that really hit me as a shock, just in terms of how that was handled. And the fact that there were a lot of guys, not unlike myself, that wanted to stay. They were there to fly, and they didn't get the chance to. They were told, hey, stop flying, and we're going to unload your helicopter next time we have a chance. And that was the end of it. So with that in mind, the company was basically in a rush to get me off the boat because obviously they don't want to keep paying for my salary if I'm not earning my salary, if I'm not working for it. So I got an email from some of the ladies in the office, and they basically said, hey, we're going to put you on one of the Fenghu carriers. So they put me on FK818, and I've heard horror stories about the carriers. It was something I definitely did not want to do, and I've got some videos I'll kind of paste in so you can see what I'm talking about. But the living situation on the carrier was hilariously uncomfortable. You know, they had offered me a room. It wasn't a very nice one, so I ended up living in the sort of dining area with what was first 8 other guys, and then ended up being 16 other guys, all packed into this room. And it sucked at first, and it was uncomfortable, but it was kind of part of that experience that I loved having. That you're so far out of your comfort zone that every day, every little interaction you have ends up being an adventure, and I quickly loved it. And the carrier went off to Majuro, and I unloaded in Majuro, and I was there for 3 days until I got a flight out. And Majuro was an awesome time. You know, I met some guys, went bar hopping with some other guys that were fixed-wing pilots working for a completely different company. And it just kind of reminded me that the interactions we have, whether they're on the boat or off the boat, are also part of the adventure. You know, when I was in, where was I? Kiribati. I met some guys. It was an expat from the UK, a guy from New Zealand, and a local guy. And they were the nicest guys you'd ever meet in the world. And we literally met at the bar and started talking. And the next thing you know, we're going out, we're having drinks, we're getting dinner. And they wouldn't let me pay for a single thing. You know, these are the nicest guys I'd ever meet. It was Jason, Charlie, and Tulo. And then same thing, I was in Majuro just having a drink at the bar, hanging out, and I started making conversation with these other 2 guys, and next thing you know, we're bar hopping, going out to clubs, grabbing a bite to eat, and we're having a grand old time. And it was amazing just to see how life can be so different on the islands. And that is something I'm really gonna miss. But anyways, the flight out of Majuro was miserable. The plane was delayed by 2 hours, and I mean, I won't get into too many details about it. Realistically, I'll write about it later, which I'll bring me to another point here. But I think I ended up being up for like 36, almost 40 hours straight by the time I got back, and then my bag was on a different flight, and I first flew into San Francisco, and I spent a couple of days in San Francisco with family, and I didn't love it, man. I was sad to be back, and I was definitely not happy about being back in the city. But after a couple more days, we had some friends come out from the East Coast, and we spent about a week on the California coast in this gorgeous house that was right on the beach, and it reminded me what it was like to be back home. So I am slowly adapting. I do feel still a little bit out of my comfort bubble. You know, I find that I have gotten used to some of the alone time that I've had on the boat. I've found that I've learned to really enjoy my own company. So a day like today, even though it's a brisk 50 degrees and it's even colder here in this redwood forest, out on the motorcycle, just jamming my tunes, nothing but me and the road, has been awesome. And it's been a nice reprieve from just trying to be social and trying to be busy and trying to stay as active as possible. So from here, the plan is to spend Thanksgiving in California. So I'll be with family, right? Got to do that. That's an obligation. After you're gone for a year and a half, you have to spend some time with the family. Once I leave California, I'll probably do some zigzagging around the U.S. for about a month or so, just to visit some friends that I've got between, Arizona, Utah, Oregon, a couple people on the East Coast. Want to stop by and swing down to Florida. And then around the end of December, or I guess early January, I'll really start looking into getting another job. And right now, things are going to be interesting. I have gotten used to a very different type of flying, one that is, in a sense, very unregulated. So jumping into a 135 operation or something that is strictly FAA controlled is going to be, I don't want to say a challenge, but it's going to be a learning curve. So I'm looking forward to what comes next. I'm anxiously nervous about the prospects of what my career holds for me. Being a tuna pilot was supposed to be a quick stepping stone, and I wasn't expecting it to be something that I fell in love with. But I did. Will I ever go back? I honestly don't know. Maybe one day. I think I'd like to go back one day. Just because, again, it is such an awesome experience, and it is this nonstop adventure. And for me, even the parts that sucked, you know, living in a cockroach infested room, you come back and they end up being a funny story. And it's not something you can explain to people out here. You know, people ask me, where have you been? What have you been up to? And well, I've been on a boat around the South Pacific, you know, like, how do you explain what you just went through to people that don't know anything about it? So, will I go back? Maybe. Let's say that one's gonna remain to be seen. As for what happens next in my career, like I said, I'm looking forward to it. I think I'm gonna stick with some rural work. I'd like to head up to Alaska, or I guess that's kind of actually where I'm at. I'm probably gonna end up heading up to Alaska just for a summer or a season, see if I like it up there, and go from there. But for now, I'm back home. And like I said, I'm reluctant to call it home because I've been moving around since I was 18 years old, and the only place that's felt like home since then has really been the boat. So it's just another way I've got to adapt, I guess. So here I am, back at home, enjoying my time off, freezing my ass off on a grossly uncomfortable motorcycle that is absolutely phenomenal to ride on these coastal roads. And I'm just having a good time. And I've got no expectations of what comes next. And I don't think anybody has any expectations of me. But here I am. So the last thing I'm going to say is that the YouTube channel has done really well, especially because I honestly haven't put a crazy amount of focus into it. I'm going to keep that extremely aviation related. So when that goes into things about my career and what kind of flying I'm doing or training or whatever it is, flying related stuff, I'll put that stuff up on YouTube. For now, I have the website, which I'm actually going to be taking down. So the main purpose of the website has been to sort of start a community, but it ended up being more of a blog, an outlet for me, really. And I found a lot of the writing is a lot more personal than some of the stuff I want to share basically just on YouTube, let alone on any social media. So I am going to continue doing some writing just when I feel like I want to, not when I feel like I have to, or when I feel like people want something else to read. But I'm going to be taking down the website. So I don't know where I'm going to put the blog stuff yet. It's probably going to be on some free hosting website, but once I figure out where it's going to go, I'll be sure to let you guys know. So that's where I am for now, guys. You might not hear from me or see anything for a little while. I'm going to post probably a couple more videos just with some excess footage I've got from the tuna boat. But that's going to be it for a little bit. And hopefully come January or February, you'll see me somewhere else, somewhere new, doing something exciting. If you've been following along, I want to say thank you. If you're just starting to follow along, please do think about subscribing to these videos and sticking along for the adventure, because as far as I can tell, it's just getting started. So thanks again, guys. We'll see you in the next one.